The whole India goes to her show to figure out what to buy, whether it's worth buying, how to buy, and what the real story is. Apart from that, she and my wife both were at NDTV, so they have an association there. It's a very, very, very probably the most regarded TV channel probably for its integrity and everything else for many, many years. And most recently, Manisha has been moving more and more into sustainability and trying to increase both the consciousness and the responsibility of corporates around that factor. So I'm already very late, Manisha. I will not take more time away from you. So it's all over to you, please.
Thank you. And I'll give you a short introduction to add to that. I also have a son at Ashoka. So if I do make a mess of this, please don't report back to him. So that's totally banned. And after hearing
now he'll definitely get phone calls, you know that.
I'm just wondering, what do I add to what you already have said? First of all, that was very deep, and I heard all the questions in the last 15 minutes, and I'm wondering whether I can invite Arya, Ridhima, etc. to my show to give a little bit of to the audience. Sharp lot and just get things so very quickly. So I think what I have is pretty much a recap of what Yash has already touched on. I'm going to try and pepper it with some stories of experiences that I've had with a lot of home buyers. And I've operated out of the National Capital Region and also looked at buyers all over India. Fortunately, the real estate industry is at a much cleaner state now because of the real estate regulator. But when I started covering real estate, it was a mess. And I have seen people go into buying real estate, not one, but a couple of properties, getting stuck in it. There was one gentleman who said, you know, ma'am, aapko main kya bataun? Main to scooter pe shuru ki thi maine apni zindagi aur main scooter se hi khatam हो जाएगी क्योंकि मैं रेंट भी पे कर रहा हूँ, EMI भी पे कर रहा हूँ और मेरे पास अभी कोई घर नहीं है. So I think that kind of craziness is now finished. More or less, those kind of pitfalls are not there in real estate anymore. Having said that, world over, people still get caught in bad investment decisions when it comes to real estate. Like, I don't know whether you've heard about Evergrande. What happened in China, a lot of people had invested, the company went bust, and therefore people are not getting their homes. I mean, there, of course, the government will bail it out because it does bail out its industry. Any other part of the world, it would have been difficult. Anyway, on that note, let me start the presentation. Okay, great. So numbers aside, this is why you have to buy real estate sometime in your life. And this is why millennials across the world continue to buy real estate. And other than India, where you've seen only 3 to 5% appreciation, all the developed markets, all the big cities from Miami to New York to London have gone nuts in the last 2 years when it comes to real estate prices. So 3 to 5% is actually a terrible real estate cycle in India. And we're probably at a cusp of that cycle turning. Millennials are buying, they're buying for a reason. And I think the biggest reason is there is no other investment, neither a fixed deposit nor a mutual fund, which can allow you to open your lazy boy, sit down, binge on Netflix the whole night, or even, just game the whole night. So for that reason, when you can afford it, you might want to buy one. And of course, your parents, grandparents, everyone's going to be delighted because whatever you might say, we are still stuck in that zone where we feel that if you have a hard asset in your portfolio, my child is extremely safe. And, there's something about him having arrived, her having arrived. So that's the sense that you have. Anyway, let's move on to, when you buy real estate, residential real estate, just differentiate on why you're doing it. I mean, I think the objective has to be very, very clear. Do you want to own a home, or actually, do you want to just invest in residential property because you want to have a little bit of real estate in your portfolio? And I'll tell you how those decisions happen. Owning a home and investing in a residential property is more or less in most people's mind when they're buying a home to live in. It is also a very solid investment, and they will make the decision based on that as well, whether I'm buying at the right price, etc. But sometimes when you are in a city, for example, in India, if you're in Mumbai, trust me, investing in residential property, it has to be, because in Mumbai, you'll only be able to rent for many, many years unless somebody bankrolls you, your parents do it. So a lot of people in that city I've seen actually invest in residential property in Pune, in Bengaluru. So you can take that decision that if you're in a city which is overpriced, very expensive, don't kill yourself trying to own a home there. You can actually rent and invest in a different place. So that's also a combination that you can look at. Now let's just come to simple. I'm going to run through them because I think Yash has already covered buying a home to live in. I think, the basic is, are you ready? Do you have an ability to pay 20% of the home cost from your savings? Now, the sweet spot for a good 2-bedroom home is about 75 lakhs across all cities. Whether it's Bengaluru, you go to Electronic City, between 60 to 75 lakhs, you'll get a really good apartment. That's one market which is doing very well. Even in Gurgaon, in Noida, definitely you'll get something. In Gurgaon, you might have to bump it up to about 1 crore of rupees. In Hyderabad, you could even get a 2-bedroom in 60 lakh rupees. So your 20% of your home cost of your savings have to come from your savings. A bank will not give you the loan. But the most important part when you're getting out of uni is that you shouldn't have any expensive outstanding debt of any expensive kind. Now, what is an expensive kind of debt? I think all of you know it. I don't have to tell you that. If you still have some credit card tabs running, please don't think of buying a home. It doesn't make any sense. If you have a personal loan running, again, it makes no sense. If you have a car loan or a student loan, those are all at about 7.5%, 8%, about 1% more than home loans. That's fine. You still have 20% of home cost from your savings. You can put that upfront money. It's fine. Do remember your credit score will come into play on what rate the housing finance company will charge you. So please be very sure, even if you have to ask your parents to pay your credit card debt, get them to clear it. Don't run a credit card tab. If you already have a credit card, if you get one, as soon as you get to work, this will come back and bite you hugely. Your ability to get credit from a bank and a housing finance company can differ as much as 1%. If I have a CIBIL score, CIBIL is one of the credit rating agencies, which will capture every time you have delayed a credit card payment. It's now a central data bank, and it's extremely critical that you keep your credit history clean. It doesn't matter if you don't want to buy a home till you're 40 years of age or 50 years of age. Please keep your credit history clean. So that's very, very important. Very quickly, how do you zero in on Best Buy? I think Yash has already touched on most important points, which are, social infrastructure, location, as we say in real estate, is critical. Especially if you're buying to live in that place, it cannot be futuristic. It cannot be 5 साल बाद जेवर एयरपोर्ट आ जाएगा तो मैं जाके यमुना एक्सप्रेसवे में खरीद लेता हूँ. Navi Mumbai airport didn't take off for 10 years, and real estate there, whoever bought it in the hope of a Navi Mumbai airport coming up, got stuck for very, very long time. So no futuristic buys. As Yash concluded, school infrastructure, offices have to be close by. If you have a metro in the city, great, good roads, approach, everything has to be there. What's the right monthly installment? I'm going a little bit up and down on the screen. So everybody, if you go through the traditional route, they'll say 30% of your take-home salary. To me, that doesn't make much sense for a couple of reasons. One is that in your generation, there is a likelihood that you and your partner both will be working. So you'll have a lot more room to increase that money. Number two, this 30% rule is great if you're earning, if your net home is about 1 lakh per month. Then you pay 30,000 rupees as your EMI, and 70,000 is good enough for other things. And you are careful not to increase it to beyond that 30,000. But once you jump to a 2 lakh salary or a 3 lakh rupees salary, it's all going to get blown up in a lot of musty, buying games online and, traveling. So you can go up to 40-45% of your EMI. So it also expands as your consumption capacity expands. So 30% is if you're at a very starter salary of about I would say do not buy a home till you at least have about 75,000 plus net take-home salary. It's not worth it. You still stick with rent. But once you cross that and you decide, then, you have some flexibility as your income goes up. Now, how do you budget for your first home? My own personal experience has been that I bought a home very, very late. And the reason was I wanted to buy it in South Delhi because my parents were living there. And every time we thought we would buy, the numbers seemed so big. It just said, oh my God, we can't afford this kind of buy. And unfortunately, the prices kept climbing because South Delhi is a market where you don't have so much supply. And by the time we landed up with a landlord who was just not the kind of landlord we wanted to be with, and we were forced to buy, the prices had gone up a lot. And we were really thinking about it and saying, and we had to stretch. Even at that point of time, when we finally bought the home, we had to stretch ourselves. But what we found is that within 2 years, with 2 incomes, we were in a very comfortable place and not at all feeling the pinch. So budgeting your first home is a very fine art. You don't under budget. The reason I'm telling you is stretch a little bit, because the pandemic has already taught you the need for space within your homes. So if you can, today you feel I'm comfortable buying a 2-bedroom, I think stretch to 2.5 bedroom. Within 2 years, you will have that extra income, unless of course you've decided that you want to remain part of the gig economy and something else is more important to you. But if you have regular income and a future income which you're sure of, then I think you can stretch just a little bit. You find, and I found that with a lot of people who bought homes, that in a couple of years, it's not even more than 2 years, that you find yourself extremely comfortable paying that. But because as Yash said, real estate is so lumpy, changing in 2 years is going to be very hard for you. You can't upgrade from 2 to 2.5 bedroom or 2 to 3 bedrooms so quickly, right? So budgeting is a very fine art. I'm saying to just budget a little bit more than what you would feel extremely comfortable. Having said that, I think one point I'd like to make is at any point of time, if you decide to buy, you must have 6 months of emergency. So that 20% that you need to save for your down payment should not include 6 months of emergency money. That money has to be in your bank all the time. That doesn't go other than a liquid mutual fund. I mean, liquid mutual fund can be, you can divest out of it in 24 hours and it'll give you a little bit more than your savings account in a bank. But 6 months of emergency fund, this is the basic of personal finance, good planning. You do not buy a home without having 20% savings to pay that upfront and 6 months of emergency funds in your bank account. So remember that. I've already talked about arriving at the right price to pay for a home. Let me give you a little bit more detail. Now, somebody talked about the fact that, the family bought a house in Gurgaon, which did not appreciate at all. And then there are also stories in Gurgaon, like a Magnolia, like a Central Park on golf course, which has appreciated even today in a terrible market, or 5 years of a terrible market after demonetization. If somebody had bought it in 2010 and calculates it today, the returns have been definitely 2 to 3% higher than a bank FD. So the thing is, how do you arrive at the right price to pay for a home? And my thing is, please, today there are so many digital tools available to you that you have no reason not to do your research. There's 99 acres, there's Magic Bricks, there is housing.com. It's very simple. You go there, you type the location that you want to buy in, you will get a whole list of apartments and projects which are there. All right. Now, what do you do? What not to do? You do not, for God's sake, buy an under construction apartment. I don't care if it's Godrej, Tata, Mahindra, Heinz, which is, of course, Yash's past company, and they pride themselves at delivering fantastic product. I don't care. The thing is that in real estate in India, there are too many moving parts. It's not just the developer who's in charge. Remember Okla Bird Sanctuary? The National Green Tribunal came very, very hard on it. And for 2 years, 10-kilometer radius, not a single project was built. There was no construction happening. COVID, there have been 2 times that construction work had to stop. Pollution, construction work stops. Your EMI clock is ticking. Your rent is ticking. Please, your first home, we're talking about your first home. Don't bother. Don't bother. However, Yash may tell you differently, or anybody else might tell you differently. Please see the property, move in. Something that you can move in within 3 months is what you will buy. This is the promise I need from everybody, that you will not buy an under construction apartment, even if it's at the promise that it's 25% cheaper. Not worth the pain. That 25% cheaper disappears with 6 months or 8 months of delay. So you don't do that. Okay. Do not buy a property without visiting a property. No friends have gone and visited, relatives have gone and visited. I've seen this fantastic, walkthrough on Matterport, which has got hosted by somebody who's doing phenomenal digital. You don't buy real estate without seeing. There's this, I'm not going to name the developer because it's a very branded developer in the country and they do great work. Having said that, they invested in they built their most premium project in Gurgaon. Now, they bought 2 parcels of land. And in the middle, there was this tiny little hamlet of villagers, which they couldn't acquire, but they were very confident they will acquire that at some point of time. Ab kya hai? We'll pay the price. They could never acquire it. It's one of the most premium projects of Gurgaon. And the approach is so crap. It's just crappy, right? So this is what I'm saying. Unless you have gone, Southern Peripheral Road just never got built. Dwarka Expressway has become a ghost town because that has never got built, right? I've already given you an example of Navi Mumbai. The number of people who bought thinking International Airport has come up, let's go and buy in Devnahalli. Right? And Devnahalli is now taking off. International Airport has been there in Bengaluru for now, what? 15 years. So please go. And in cities like Bengaluru, please check for water. Nobody talks to you about simple things, but Indian cities are running out of water, right? So these are the little basic things which you don't have to worry about if you're buying in London or New York or any Dubai. But in India, you even have to look at what are the sources of water? Is there municipal connection of water here? Or where is the electricity coming from? 90% of Gurgaon societies are running when there is a downturn in terms of electric power. They're all on gensets, and their electricity bills between Delhi and Gurgaon are hugely different per month. Because in Delhi, you have a fantastic electricity supply from BSCS. So, these are simple things, nitty-gritties, keep them in mind. I'm not saying that you have to make your decision based on that, but you have to make sure in a city like Bengaluru, you have access to clean drinking water from municipal corporation sources. What don't you do? You don't buy expensive. You just don't buy expensive. It doesn't matter whether it's a Tata or a Godrej or a Mahindra. Again, I'm saying, Birla. I mean, I seriously wonder, one of the projects by one of these developers in Noida Sector 150 got sold at 40% premium to what every other local good developer was selling. And I'm like, what is it that people are seeing? Over time, it doesn't matter. There are 1 or 2 outstanding properties, like if you have a golf course in a Magnolia, that's unbeatable, right? But in most cases, a good development over time will come at par with each other. There'll only be a difference of 1,000 or 1,500 rupees per square feet, 10 or 15% difference between an excellent quality development versus an average quality development, or maybe 20%. But if you start out buying 40% more expensive, then you have to, and your property is appreciating at 4 to 5% per annum. How long will you take to just cover the gap? So please don't buy expensive. Go to 99 acres. Now, if you see a property worth 1 crore and it's giving you 1,500 square feet livable area, you can calculate what it's 7,500 rupees per square feet, right? Now, if it's giving you a livable area of 2,000, then it's 5,000 rupees per square feet. There is a difference in the cost, and look at livable area, which is carpet area of a project. RERA now says that every project has to register its carpet area. The builder will come to you and not sell you at a carpet area still. He will still be quoting you prices at super area, but you can do a simple search, go onto the RERA website, search for the project, and look at the carpet area of that project, or ask the builder. It's your right today to ask the builder, what is my livable area or carpet area? Sure, you're charging me on super area. Yes, I might want a smaller livable area, but a larger swimming pool and a better club, that's my choice. But I must be able to do an apple to apple calculation of what am I paying per square feet for the living area that I get, right? So that's very important. Do not buy real estate on the promise of a quick return. This is rampant in North India. It becomes rampant whenever the cycle starts turning. And my God, brokers will come to you. Abhi kharid lo, sir. मैं बता रहा हूँ 3 महीने में आपको नहीं भी move करना है, मैं बिकवा दूंगा. आपका 15% कहीं नहीं जाएगा. This is a promise which is bunkum. You are getting yourself into a trap. Don't bother. Don't buy under construction. Don't buy on a promise of quick return. If you're buying a residential real estate, in your mind, you have to know that it will take you up to 6 months to a year to be able to sell it. So you must have some amount of visibility on the fact that if I'm buying an apartment to live in, I at least have the surety that I will either live here for the next 3 to 4 years, enjoy that apartment that I bought, or if I move, and why should you not move? If you get a better job opportunity, you must. If you get, you're doing a startup and Gurgaon is very expensive, you want to move to Noida where office per square feet rates are half of Gurgaon. Yes, that's true, half of Gurgaon. And you want to move, then you absolutely should. But if you've already bought an apartment which is very rentable, then at least you can rent it out, right? And move and be free to move. So that's why it's also very important to buy a fully ready apartment in a good place which has medical, schools, social infrastructure, and all of that. So anyway.
Manisha, sorry, can I ask a question on your previous slide? So I was wondering with RERA, like there are new clauses that have come in, right? So for instance, if you buy an under constructed house and it's under construction and the developer is not able to give back the house, they are sort of liable to pay some penalty, which is what most brokers perhaps felt that, you know, if they don't die, they will give you the penalty and you'll be able to come out of the project. And there's higher appreciation also in an under construction house. So I was wondering with RERA, do you think sort of the prospects of buying an under constructed house become safer in that regard then?
It is safer than before. But let me tell you what has happened during COVID. And this is a really good developer. You know what he told my nephew? Of course, I owe you money because 6 months I've got development. 6 months have been a delay because of COVID. But 6 months, you know, the delay has been beyond my reasonable, this whole beyond reasonable control, or there are these multiple clauses that they will put in. The other thing that developers do, and this is shocking, this has happened to me when I was the editor of a real estate show on an influential channel. They actually said that they had increased my the living area, carpet the square footage in the flat by 32 square feet. Therefore, whatever they owed me for the delay is actually not what they owe me because they're giving me 32 square feet more. Am I going to go with an architect and start measuring it out? The unfortunate part is that there are very few developers who will really honor it. They will find ways not to honor it. It is the fact of, it is the reality. This is something that I see, the number of letters I get from home buyers and saying, but you know, even after RERA, I am not getting what is my due. Where are you going to go? RERA doesn't have enough manpower to go after builders and developers. They just don't. I did a show on how unregulated the Delhi real estate market is. I spoke to Anand Kumar, the RERA chairman. He said, I can't come on your show because I've just taken over. I said, okay, sir, but aap kar kya rahe ho? Ye to bata do. So he's like, main kar raha hu, I'm going to clean up. Go to his office. I went for a chai. They have no people. That office looks like a dead office. They have all but 3 people. How are they going to monitor? Who are they going to go after? So there is a Maharashtra RERA, which is very proactive because, Gautam, the first RERA chairman who came, Gautam Chatterjee, it's again very bureaucratic and depends on really the RERA chairman. There are some RERAs which are fantastic, some RERAs which just don't work. Karnataka RERA, it's a different thing that Karnataka is not a bad market. The developers there have been very clean and much more professional for the longest time, but please don't depend on RERA. RERA only tells you that you will get your home, and the builders will, if they delay your project inordinately, they can't run away with your money. Earlier that was happening. They were taking your money and they were taking money for this particular project that they've sold to the buyers, and they were taking that money and buying new land. So they had no money. They were depending on the fact that this cycle or this fantastic round robin of money would continue. Then the party stopped because houses stopped selling, right? And there was an oversupply glut in the market. And when they couldn't get more money out of the next project that they were launching, they couldn't complete their previous projects. So all that RERA now helps you is that the builder can't run away with your money. But will you get paid if the project is delayed? Trust me, the developer will find some way to pay you much less than what the buyer-seller agreement does. So first home, why risk it? Second home, when you have a lot more money, think about it. First home, have the structure ready. See at least the structure in front of you. Go inside. Make sure that you've seen the living space before you buy it. Finishing can happen. 3 to 6 months, you can wait for that. But you needn't wait. I mean, please don't buy early stage projects, right? Now, buy versus rent debate. Math has already been done by Yash, right? And there's so the thing is in real estate that there are so many moving parts. The cycle is so long, right? So what may seem like last 5 years, real estate has been a dud investment in India. But before that, and I'll take you through that chart, whoever invested in 2010 made a hell of a lot of money till 2015, right? So with home loan interest being one of the parts, how your appreciation will happen of your asset, that will depend on the supply of the units in the market, etc., etc. So over a long period of time, generally you should make inflation plus 3%, 4% on real estate. That's a good, healthy market, and that's a good sort of returns that you can expect from real estate. In fact, this is one point which I've missed, so I'll go back. When you're looking at the right price to buy, it's actually look at the price trend of that particular market. If it has already grown at 5% inflation plus 2 or 3%, that's a right price to buy. If it's actually grown only at about inflation rate or below inflation rate, and there are markets which have grown less than inflation in the last 5 years, then actually those markets are cheap. They're slightly cheap, right? And if it has grown inflation plus, let's say 5, 6, 7%, it's an expensive market. I mean, that's also a basic thumb rule that you can use to see whether you're buying at the right price or not. Having said that, beyond the buy versus rent debate, emotional security, you can't really actually equate this with anything. And during the pandemic, I have seen this with so many. I went to shoot a signature global project, right? And this is an affordable housing project. And this is beyond Patodi. It's quite far away. I met a young IT couple and I asked them, I said, how come you bought? So they said, look, they have this, a lottery system in affordable homes in Gurgaon. And I said, you've come so far away and you're living. They said, you know what? Our landlord had put so many restrictions on us during the pandemic. We are so glad that we blocked this house. We are both IT professionals. We don't even have to go to work anymore, but we have our own flat. And we are just so relieved about that. So whether it's a really wealthy person, because I've also done a survey for Sotheby's International Realty on luxury buying, and 67% of ultra high net worth individuals are saying we do want to upgrade in the next 2 years. Everyone wants an extra room, right? So it's safe haven, emotional security, inflation hedge, very important. I mean, in most cases, real estate will match over, if you give it time, if you give it 5 to 10 years, It'll give you inflation plus 1 or 2% returns, right? It's a fantastic asset diversifier. You will realize after a while, with the volatility in the stock markets, your mutual funds are, of course, should be your first investment. As a personal finance person as well, because I've done personal finance for the longest time, I would say you must start your SIPs in your mutual funds before you start looking at an EMI. There's no doubt about that. Having said that, there is a point where you will say, मैं कितना SIP में डालूं, मैं कितना markets में डालूं. Markets also are not going to go just one way. So at that point of time, it's a great asset diversifier. There are tax advantages. If you buy early, a lot of people who bought early, the Indian government is giving you a credit linked subsidy scheme for homes which are up to 45 lakh rupees, for home loans of up to 45 lakh rupees, and the size of the house has to be, I think, 1800 square feet in a metro, in a non-metro, and 1200 in a metro. I don't remember it precisely, but you can look that up. You also get some interest set off of about 2 lakhs per annum. You also get a principal set off of 1.5 lakhs per annum. So you have some tax advantages. So actually, if you're today, for example, you are at a historic low home loan at 6.75%. If you buy a good home, first home, which is not very big, which comes under CLSS, and take all these advantages, tax advantages, somebody has done the math and actually said that your interest rate is not more than 6.25%. So you actually get a 0.5% knockoff even on your interest rate. So these are some good things to keep in mind. It's a forced saving habit. And at the end of it, what you create is so bulky. You don't realize aapka EMI ja raha hai. And then suddenly, I remember my spouse is in hospitality, and not that we are not doing well. It's just a question of suddenly the hospitality industry stopped, right? You remember the first COVID, and he was sitting, and as a CEO, he was sitting and saying, oh my God, will I ever be able to reopen this property, right? And my only thing which I told him is, what are you worried about? And Siddharth, our son, had just got into Ashoka, and you're not on financial scholarship or anything. And I was like, what are you worried about? We have this South Delhi home. If nothing, we just have to sell it. So, this is even at our life stage where actually there was just a psychological, momentary panic, monetary panic. It was not a big panic. There was no issues at all. The first thing which crossed my mind was that I have this South Delhi home, which if I sell, when I want to sell it, will give me a bulk which I would not have been able to, think of from anywhere else today. So that forced savings really comes in handy. You can take a reverse mortgage. You can also only asset which you can go to the bank and take some money out of it as a loan. No cranky landlords, I've covered it. Your parents will love it, I've covered it. And that's the reason why millennials everywhere in the world continue to buy real estate. It's crazy. In the US, there is no supply left. The supply has fallen so below demand, it's not funny. So now let's come to investing in a residential property. Now, if you're buying a residential property only as an asset diversifier and saying that I'm going to make money in it, then there are a couple of things you have to remember, right? Real estate is cyclical in nature. There will be long periods where you will not make money. There will be periods that you will make money. So when you catch real estate cycle is very important on when you will make money. So if one of your family homes has not made money, I can give it to you in writing that it must have been bought between 2010 and 2013-14, when the real estate prices had gone nuts, and then demonetization happened and the cycle turned negative, right? So it's being cyclical in nature is very much like manufacturing. When the going is good, there are lots of developers who will come in and start launching and buying land and start launching projects, and there will be a supply glut. And then, of course, then they start moving out of the market because the weaker ones fall off the radar, and then the supply stops. Supply comes down and the supply demand becomes a little bit more in sync. Understand the price trends of a micro market over the last 10 years. If you are buying purely for an investment, then you got to do research as good as a stock market. Like if the way you will buy a Reliance stock, you will look at the balance sheet, you will look at the micro market, you will look at the supply of units in that market, you will look at the fact how much have prices appreciated, you will look at the overall affordability of home buyers in that market, which essentially means that the affordability of people who are working in Noida is lower than the affordability of people in Gurgaon, right? The wealth and income levels are different. So look at that as well. I mean, you don't buy some of the worst stuck projects were the luxury projects. People actually went and launched 10 to 15 crore villas in Noida. Now they did it on that basis when there was a lot of cash market in real estate, right? Before demonetization, because there were these UP people and UP businessmen who were buying in hordes in cash. It's a reality. I mean, I have to talk about it. There was so much cash in the market, and therefore your rental returns are so poor in India because all real estate assets just went up because of that cash part of the real estate market. So based on that there'll be a lot of people who will come, businessmen who will come with bagfuls of cash and buy my 15 crore of villas. Didn't happen. Demonetization happened and they are the worst stuck. Now that is not a market for luxury or that kind of crazy luxury, right? So look at the affordability of home buyers in the market that you're going to buy and therefore buy within that range. Look at growing incomes and overall country's prosperity, right? If your country is hitting some sort of a roadblock, the worst markets in real estate today are the European markets because the GDP there is just not growing. They are mature markets. They don't have a young population. They don't have demand. And villas after villas in Tuscany and stunning are up for sale at dirt price, like throwaway prices. But of course, maintaining those villas is very, very expensive. So nobody is buying them. So look at incomes, whether that's a young population, young country, growing income, growing GDP, great time. Also, good time to buy. Economic buzz of the city or the micro market that you're buying in is very critical. For that, if you're looking at it, look at also office supply, right? Sameer Jasuja will do a session with you on reading data. But if you have to become a real estate investor, then you have to look at all of these little things. You have to learn how to read data. And don't buy without reading data, because just like anything else, the demand, supply, economic buzz, prosperity, home loans, all of that will come into the picture. Interest rates on home loan, of course, is an important point to consider. The lower the interest rate, the more the number of people who are encouraged to take a position on real estate, and therefore the supply, demand is higher. Okay. So when will you make money? One is when you catch the cycle at the right time. It's important. When you capture a trend early. Now, I'll tell you this really interesting story which happened in 2020. Which is the asset class, which is the kind of property which rose the fastest? Were plots and plotted developments, right? And so Gurgaon is all high rises. There was a time when everybody wanted to be in a high rise. What COVID did was that RWAs went nuts. They started putting all kinds of restrictions on people's movement, right? And people started feeling trapped in their own homes. So guess what took off? Nothing. Builders did these. They had large parcels of land. They said, COVID ho gaya, hum bana to pa nahi rahe hain. To plot kato, roadeं banao, clubhouse do, aur inko becho logon ko. And people actually bought that. DLF got a policy cleared by the Haryana government, influential builders with the Haryana government, where, the Delhi kind of plots, aapne 300 square feet ka ghar, plot, purane ghar tod ke, you're making 4 floors on it, right? This happens even in Bengaluru, Indiranagar, and the older colonies. Gurgaon mein, that was not much prevalent in the last 10 years. Most people were building high rises. So what DLF did is they got a little bit of an extra FSI. So instead of 3 floors, you could make 4 floors now. And they started selling these single floors on smaller plots. Fire. 30% in 6 months. They launched one project, and their CEO, Ashoka actually went on CNBC and said that within 6 months, we raised the prices of our floor launches by 30%. Now, whoever caught that cycle caught it. So if you're an investor, you have to sense the pulse of what are people feeling right now. Home is a very emotional purchase, right? It's all about lifestyle. It's all about people's own emotional well-being. So try and catch those trends. It's very interesting on when people catch that trend and make money. They make spectacular money. In general, The maximum money you will make in real estate is if you can buy land. But buying land is very difficult, and making it, getting it right. A lot of people buy land where there is an infrastructure project coming up, or they feel that it's a futuristic place where something big will happen. Like those places, you can make a hell of a lot of money. Having said that, couple of things you should be able to monitor land, because if land which is just fenced from around is a lot of people in Bengaluru and in Delhi have complained to me that it's gone because somebody's come and squatted, and you cannot fight with the villagers who will come and squat on your land. You cannot fight with the Haryanvi Jats. You cannot get into a battle with them. It is crazy. And it's not just even in Bengaluru, a farmhouse, this family friend of ours had a farmland of 2 acres, beautiful property, and it was on the upcoming Bangalore-Mysuru highway, so it would have done very, very well. They're in court fighting a case because someone has come and spotted, and and they get papers made because digitization is very poor in India. So land is a bit dicey, but if you've got the gumption and if you've got some strong men in the family who can handle it for you, you can make a lot of money in that. And then, of course, in real estate, there is patience. Suppose you do catch a cycle at a bad time. Not all of us will make the decision at the right time, right? Then there are 2 ways of looking at it. One is you've realized you've done a bad purchase. Please take your loss, cut out of it, move the money elsewhere. You will recover it faster. Because in real estate, if you buy expensive and then the cycle turns downwards, it's very hard to come back. The number of people I have advised, and this is when the real estate cycle was going down, I've had NRI specifically, because NDTV is watched everywhere, right? Globally, it's available in many countries. NRIs obviously thought that I had some crystal ball in front of me, and if Manisha says it, to wahi hoga, which was very scary for me to tell them. I'm still just a journalist and nothing more, right? But I would tell them that, look, you've been waiting on this property for 5 years. The prices have still not come back to where they were. Or, okay, fine, they might have come back to where they were, but it's still a notional. It's a huge opportunity cost loss. Cut your losses. If you had moved your money into the stock markets 2 years ago, you would have more than covered your prices, right? So either have patience for then the cycle to come up, or then if you've made a bad investment decision and you don't have the patience, then cut your losses and move to another asset class. So as an investor, I'm saying what are the things you should do. This is not if you want a home to live in. Now, this is something that I'd like you to see. It's a very interesting chart. Let me wear my specs for this. This is 2010 to 2021. Now, now we're looking at 7 cities average, right? So you had 4,007 rupees per square feet of a city apartment. These are urban centers, which has moved to 7,108, or assume 7,100. This is prop equity data. Okay. What has been the appreciation? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But I'll take you to another chart to show you the cyclical nature of it. And also look at the inventory now. So there is a term called inventory overhang that we use in residential real estate, in all real estate. When your inventory, which is inventory overhang, is the time it takes for 1 unit of a home to get, or let's say there are 100 units launched in a market, right? In Noida sector 150. What is the time it will take for all of these 100 units to sell? Right? Is it 14 months, or is it 30 months, or is it 25 months? That is the inventory overhang. If the inventory overhang is less than 2 years or about 18 months, it's very healthy. I would say less than 18 months, because real estate takes time to sell. ऐसे नहीं होता कोई first stage पे खरीदता है, कोई second stage पे खरीदता है. जैसे मैं आपको बोल रही हूँ आप last stage पे खरीदो तो आप last stage पे खरीदोगे, correct? तो आप सोचो कि 18 महीने से नीचे की inventory है तो बहुत healthy market है. So in 2010 we started out with an inventory overhang of 14 months, 15 months. Very healthy market. Then you see when we came to this point. Okay, right? This was 2017 was when we hit a 37-month inventory overhang. Little over 35 dikha raha hai isme, but I know at one point we even hit 37 months. Some markets like Noida were at 65 months of inventory overhang. Worst appreciation has been in Noida market, right? भर भर के घर आए थे, भर भर के लोग बिल्डर बने थे, ब्रोकर गाड़ियां स्कूटर चला रहे थे, बिल्डर बन गए थे. Literally, I can name the number of builders who were brokers before they became builders. So that is how the market became between 2010 and 2013-14. When did the party stop? Demonetization. सबसे बड़ा धक्का तो demon पे लगा. Cash सब disappear हो गया for a few months in the market, and the market just stopped. But even before demonetization, because the supply had become so much, the demand had not caught up. There was already a glut in the market, right? So this is one thing that you need to be very aware of if you're an investor. What is the price appreciation versus inventory overhang in a market? And you will find there is no market. Maybe one project might stand out, right, in a particular market, which will actually beat the market dynamics. And that will have to be because it has something very special. Either, let's say, a 10 acres of a green forest inside the project, right? There are some projects which are close to the Sanjay Gandhi National Park in Mumbai, which have done very well, and they have withstood the price downfall because of the green lung that they have, right? Or like a Magnolia and an Aralias because it has a golf course. But other than those special things, 99% of the projects will actually have this, what has been the price movement and what is the inventory overhang. Too much inventory overhang in a market means prices are not going to appreciate. So please remember that when you're an investor in real estate. Now, look at this one. Very interesting this is. In 2010, look at the number of units that India was selling. This is the pink line. 329,000 units is what we were selling across top 7 cities. Look at 2017. We dropped to 250,000 units. In a growing economy, we dropped, right? We shaved off about 80,000 units. Then slowly, we have come back to 318,000 units. Even now, we are not at our peak of sales, right? So extremely interesting point that, one second. Window, sea breeze windows opening. Extremely interesting point that we are still below India's peak residential market, right? So this is important. And also, if you actually plot out the 4,007 to 7,100 over 10 years, you have barely grown at an inflation rate. What does that tell you? Will someone answer me? Where are we on the real estate cycle? Guys, where are we on the real estate cycle? Nobody?
I mean, it's at an upturn. It's about to go up again after a long period of down.
Yeah. It's beginning to look like that. Number one, it's grown only at an inflation rate. Some markets have grown below inflation rate. That itself is saying that there is some amount of asset bubble which was there, which has come out of it, right? Number two, prices have not moved up. Right? Number three, the takeoff seems to be now coming back. So from 329,000, people are now beginning to see that there is some value in it. I mean, I'm pretty much getting real estate at 10 years old price. Correct? So these are some of the things which tell you that the cycle could be turning. It might be a good time to buy. Now, I've taken this from the HDFC, is your largest mortgage lender in the country. So I've taken it from their annual report. HDFC has been maintaining this for the last 2 years and 4 quarters in all its annual, in its investor calls, that affordability in India is the best that it has been in 2.5 decades, right? So now look at this chart in 1995, and what is affordability? It's property prices by annual income, okay? Now in 1995, property was expensive. When our parents and grandparents were buying, parents were buying it, not grandparents. 95 is not grandparents' time. It's more like my time when we just started out our work life. it was very expensive as a percentage to our annual income. We didn't think that we would ever be able to buy property till our 40s. Our parents also, if they didn't come from an inherited property background, really, in fact, so many of service class parents, right? Like my parents, they bought real estate at the end of their careers. वो retirement का जब fund आया, PF का पैसा आया, वो सब मिला के after the kids had got educated, तब उन्होंने खरीदा घर, right? So it was actually very, very expensive. And then you look at it, the cusp came, as in most all of India's story, was during our beautiful Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh and liberalization, 2001, 2002, the economy took off. And look at the property prices. Now, whoever bought property in this 2000, 2001, 2, 3 did phenomenally well. And these are the legendary stories that a lot of us heard and a lot of us invested. Forget the house to live in, we also invested. But if you bought it in 2011, 12, 13, you still made some little bit of money. But if you bought it in 2014, 15, you actually have lost money. Right? And now look at the affordability. You are at a 2.5 decades best affordability because your income, and this is the orange income. And we are talking about the middle class India and the formal sector. Informal sector does not get any home loans, and therefore that's so it's all the salaried class, middle India, upper middle India, and the well-off India, right? Incomes have been growing. So this is really, I mean, it would be interesting to see whether it takes off as we predict it will. But I think we're at a good point for a first-time home buyer. This is what I've been saying for the last 1 year, that there can't be a better time to buy. And this is it. Your home loans are today at a historical low, 6.75%. It's unheard of. So this is also one of the things that makes your home more affordable. These are the headlines of 2021, that housing sales, and look, this is it. It's a herd. They get it. People in India are really bright and smart. World over, people have got it that 2021 is a great year to buy. Sales across top 7 cities rose 71%. Even then, pre-COVID level, which is 2019, they're still 10% short of 2019, way short of your peak of 330,000 units. We are still not at 2010 when it comes to housing demand in the top 7 cities. Average residential property prices have increased only by 3 to 5%. There are pockets which have increased 9 to 10%, but nothing. There is really, other than the single floor plots and plotted developments, which have gone up between 15 to 30%, but that also has now tapered off. Most of the real estate has risen by between 5 and 7%. Bengaluru, Mumbai, despite being the most expensive market, has seen the highest price increase of 5%. And because what happened is that Mumbai market suffered the most. It had become so outrageously expensive, and there were so many luxury launches that market stalled for. It was the worst affected when it came, in the downturn. So when it picked up after COVID, because especially in Mumbai, people felt the crunch of space so much. So whoever could afford it, when work from home got combined with study from home, entertainment from home, exercise from home, people actually did upgrade. And then the Maharashtra government gave a stamp duty waiver for 6 months. So all of those led to a lot of demand coming back. Kolkata was Chennai and Kolkata was performing markets. And why are they worst performing? Can someone tell me? Kolkata has no economic activity. It's a dud market. Chennai will take off. Chennai in the middle lost out because of the whole AIDMK, DMK. The politics makes so much of a difference. It's crazy. In the peak of 2010, 11, 12, 13, when prices everywhere were going up, Hyderabad was just not moving. The Telangana and Andhra controversy, political controversy, that market simply didn't move. And once the state bifurcation happened, it's been the best performing market. So that's another aspect to look at it. I mean, sometimes a big political turmoil and how it can affect a city. Okay, now I'm going to quickly conclude with inherited property. If you're going to get something big, lucky. What do you do with it is the big question. Keep it if it's in a high demand market and you can rent it out. We've already covered what makes a high demand market. Not going to go over that. If you're renting it out, even if your rental returns are 2 to 3%, I would say keep it. Free में मिल रहा है यार, क्या problem क्या है? आ रहा है, रख लो उसको, rent करो, and and wait for the up to cycle turnaround करने वाली है, so you'll get like much better returns. Set aside a sum for property taxes and maintenance that will fall on you. Biannual upgrades. Now, this is what if not biannual, annual upgrades. अगर आप नहीं करोगे तो वो property कचरा हो जाती है. Real estate का यही problem है. आपको करना तो पड़ेगा ही. And upgrades can really change or make a property. And globally, people actually make a profession out of buying dud properties, turning them around and flipping it. US में तो shows हैं उसके. कैसे कचरा प्रॉपर्टी खरीदी, उसको इतना स्मैशिंग बना दिया और बेच दिया, एंड यू गॉट लाइक सच अमेजिंग रिटर्न्स आउट ऑफ इट. इंडिया में वो नहीं होता है, उतना नहीं रिटर्न आता है, बट दिस you can easily charge a 10% premium if your property is well maintained. So that's something that you should build in and ensure that the legal title is clean. A lot of, especially HNIs I see when they inherit property, वो 4-5 owners थे, फिर वो नीचे आई, फिर वो किसकी है, किसकी नहीं है. कई बार तो mutation नहीं हुई होती है property की, उसकी change नहीं किया होता. Like there are many little you can actually register a property, you can get the status changed. Older people are just sitting on real estate, वो करवाते नहीं ये सब. So the first thing that you do when you inherit is please take it to a lawyer, a good real estate lawyer, and get the title checked. See if any mutations have to happen, if any change, use change. Like जैसे hills में property होती है, a lot of it is agricultural land still, जबकि उस पे अभी bungalow बन गया है. So you need to change it from agricultural to residential, right? So all of those things you need to take care of. If it's a dud, sell it. Move the asset to a better property, because most of the inherited properties are already older than 10 years, right? So properties have a life too. So some properties, अगर आपका जोरबाग और गोल्फ लिंक्स में मिल रहा है घर, या मलाबार हिल्स में मिल रहा है, तो भाई उसको बैठे रहो, अपने बच्चों को दे देना, वो तो कहीं नहीं हिलना उस पे, है ना. लेकिन अगर उस तरीके के बहुत ही शानदार लोकेशन में नहीं मिल रही है और डड प्रॉपर्टी है, अगर गोल्फ कोर्स, अगर आपको द्वारका एक्सप्रेसवे में प्रॉपर्टी मिल रही है जो बड़ी नहीं है 10 साल से, तो आप उसको बेच ही दो, है ना, and move it to a better asset. So these are the kind of things you have to remember. Sometimes it also makes sense to sell if it's inherited by multiple family members, because you can't decide on what to do. Each one is at a very different financial well-being in their life. So some people will want to sell, others will want to stick through. But if you're part of a family where there are 5 people who want to sell and 5 who don't, I would request, and you're one of them who doesn't want to sell it, I would say help out people. What is the value of money at the end of it? It is for security and safety. Any asset class, right? If there are 5 people in the family who are at a financial well-being or are not feeling comfortable and need that money from a family property, and you're doing very, very well and you don't need the money, it doesn't matter. It's inherited property. You should make sure that everyone in the family feels financially well off. Please go on that side and sell that property and let everyone benefit from it, right? You can put your money elsewhere. It's not like you will not make 8% from any other asset class, but let everyone feel happy about it. So on that family feud, I would say be on the side of sell if it's multiple family members. Avoid keeping a property which you can't monitor regularly. I've seen a lot of NRIs struggle with it. And now, of course, people are saying, aggregators aa gaye hain. There are some NRI, they'll take your property, they will manage it, they will rent it out. But I just find that it's not easy. Finally, my brother had one. I told him, becho isko. Kaun karega? My dad is sitting and doing all his property taxes and all of that. He's 76. It makes no sense. You're depending on somebody else to do your work for you, and it's not fun. So if you can't monitor, if you're not coming to India every year, don't bother keeping that property. Ensure you have annual free cash for an upkeep. Goa में property मिली है तो भाई रखो, हमें भी बुलाओ, लेकिन property उसमें बहुत लगता है, खर्चा बहुत लगता है उसको upkeep करने में. Seaside property में तो बहुत ही लगता है, because आपके दरवाजे गल जाते हैं. Hill property भी बहुत time it's not easy to maintain vacation properties, but if you have enough free cash, keep it. And check on your tax liability before selling, because old inherited properties, there is now an indexation year which has changed, but go to a good chartered accountant and see and figure out what you want to do with the capital gains. It's really important. If you're selling it, what are you going to do? Are you going to invest in Section 54 bonds, which is these are government bonds, or are you going to buy another real estate which you can deploy capital gains from one property into another property? That's another way of selling it. So look at it. I mean, but check on your tax liability before selling. So that's another important thing. And that's it. I hope you inherit something and don't have to buy yourself. Nothing more to add. Go ahead. There are lots of hands up. Please, Swarna, you want to start?
Manisha, feel free to call out to me, please. Abhi, I think you had this hand out first.
Yeah, thank you. So ma'am, I wanted to ask you, do you think these considerations might change, with the budget around the corner? There's been a lot of rumors around an inheritance tax, which could be introduced with property. So do you think that could change considerations, especially in cases where you're saying, there may not be mutations which are done or the paperwork may not be fine? Do you think that could affect, decisions?
I don't think, first of all, inheritance tax will come because, I mean, globally, not in this budget at least, the government is not going to, the only people who are making money are the super rich, and I don't think that it'll get dampened. But yeah, once inheritance tax does come in, it's going to affect everybody who inherits property. It's not going to be, abhi to bahut easy hai. You inherit, it's really a great thing if you inherit a real estate from family or an estate. And estate planning has a lot of nuances to it. Usme most people will work with a family office or will work with a big 5 chartered accountant like EY, etc. It's not something that you'll manage on your own. Then they'll do everything. But I don't think this year you will have inheritance tax. I mean, at least we are not hearing that.
Professor Manisha ma'am, could you please unshare your screen?
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about that. Okay, sorry guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, can I go next?
Yeah, please. Go.
Hi, thank you for the masterclass, Manisha. It was really great. And my only question was that like in India, the tradition for a home, like when you buy a home, is the idea behind it is to never sell it. And a lot of the mentality is still the same. I feel like I've seen residential houses, like family houses, having their value gone like 50x. They bought it at 1 crore, now the value is at 50 crore, but they are still not ready to sell it because of the sentiment or any sort. So do you think from a personal finance point of view, a residential or a home for an individual in India can be considered as an asset class? Because at the end, it's becoming a liability when no one wants to sell it.
No, so you should sell it. So first of all, there is also, I mean, these are very rare stories. Like I said, if it's in a golf links or a Vasant Vihar, if you're talking about Delhi or Malabar Hills, sort of a place, or Juhu in Mumbai, those kind of properties, of course, and the appreciation that you see is at a very different level. India was at a very few people had access to real estate in these very big markets, right? Going forward, even in these best markets, you're not going to see that same appreciation. That's for sure. Yeah, and a lot of people anecdotally say 1 crore की खरीदी थी 10 crore की हो गई, लेकिन आपने उसको स्प्रेडशीट पे डाल के देखा है कितने साल में हुई है और रिटर्न्स कितने आए हैं. So I agree with you. If it's multiple people, multiple inheritors, you should sell the property. If it's done very well for you, you should treat it like an asset class and not get attached to it and sell it. But if it's just 1 or 2 people who have inherited it, it's like families are getting smaller now, and both the brother sister are of the opinion. Or ye maine bahut dekha hills wale gharon ke liye. A lot of people have inherited beautiful properties in the hills from their grandparents, and they're not selling it. They make it a family home to go and enjoy it during the vacation. They all pitch in. So it also depends a lot on your family dynamics. If it's a very comfortable family dynamics, everyone is at a very equal, very close to equal level of financial well-being, it's a very different matter. But if you're at a very different, in siblings, if you're at a very different level of financial wellness, right? Some people, one person is doing very well, who wants to sell and has no, or one person is not doing very well, who wants to sell and want that money, then I think the person who is doing well should go on that other side.
Right.
And I totally believe money ka, property ka, zyadaat ka koi zarurat, I mean, what is it if it doesn't give every family member happiness, right? So it's dynamics of a family. But yeah, if it's a very old property, unless it's in one of the very high demand markets, it doesn't make much sense to keep it.
Got it. Thank you.
Yash Raj, and please keep your questions short, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful presentation. I want to take your views a bit on the tourism and the hospitality market for real estate, considering that disposable incomes are going up in India. And I've also seen a lot of money going into hill stations and resorts by politicians, by industrialists. Even not hill resorts, then we can see Sukh villas outside Chandigarh. So is this a market, is this a segment that's going to go high up in the coming years?
Yashraj, it already has. It already has. I was speaking to the Isprava team, Nishrant and Rohan. They're two iBankers who started this brand called Isprava. And they gave me a presentation 2 days ago on what's happened to the Goa market. And they only build vacation homes in non-urban centers. They're rocking it. Totally rocking it. But the thing is that this is a pandemic. It's a post-pandemic situation, right? People have just wanting to be close to nature, wanting open, safe spaces. And Goa market is actually, land has gone up 30% annual in the last 2 years. So it's in some spots in North Goa, like Asagaon, which are in huge demand. It is, according to me, it's nothing but another Malabar Hills and golf links put together. So all the rich want to go there. But it has gone a bit crazy. Independent villas, which were, small boutique properties, which were not doing well, are doing very, very well right now. You're right, that trend, but I think maybe it'll do very well another 2-3 years, but so much of any investment increase happens and gets front loaded that the tail end is not the greatest. What happened to the stock markets? Most of your gains have come from the time the vaccinations were announced to now, right? Now in 2020, you wiped out, NASDAQ has wiped out all its gains of 2021. Right? You're sitting at a place where next year, what BlackRock says is that you might get 5 to 6% of equity markets. Real estate is the same thing. Vacation homes, everyone wanted one. Everyone who can afford one did one. So suddenly this whole hospitality, boutique, vacation home segment did phenomenally well. And prices have gone crazy. There is not enough supply. You may see another 1 year of that happiness lasting. And after that, it'll again moderate. So over time, the expectations from real estate can't be inflation plus 3 to 4%.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what you have to internalize. If it is more than that, then you've just been lucky. Then sell it and invest elsewhere. Right? Like we've been saying in stock markets for everybody, your portfolio must have now become too heavy on equity. Skim off the gains, move to debt, skim off the gains. जिसने सुन लिया जैसे बोला पार्टी कभी खत्म ही नहीं होगी तो अभी होगी ना. Last week में तो खत्म हो, मतलब काफी निकल गई है India market से, and US market is lost, NASDAQ is lost all of 2021 gains.
If I can just add to that, Manisha, I think you make a great point on the inflation plus 3 or 4%. The reason why you should not expect abnormal gains from real estate is because the risk is low. It's a very simple risk-reward, risk-return ratio. It's a low-risk asset class, and thereby, over a period of time, it will give you kind of this, exactly as Manisha said, inflation plus a normal return. And the periods, but it is to be taken in the context of a very long hold. To the example that Manisha started with, which is, the person who was talking about how they've had it for 5 years and there has been no movement. There are many, many examples. I remember I was trying to sell a property, which I could not sell for 15 years at the same price, even if I wanted to sell it at that thing. And then 15th year, we got a 25x bump on that because FAR changed, the area changed, etc. This was in Bangalore, and it just went crazy. So over a period of time, it averages out, but we have to keep it in context. Yeah. Manisha, there are lots of questions. Shuma, what do we have a hard stop as to when we have to stop? What is the sense here?
I have a hard stop at 1:30, Yash.
Okay, so we have 5 more minutes. Let's do 2 more questions.
But Yash will be able to answer anything that I can answer.
You are the expert in phenomenal presentation. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I've learned so much myself. I'm much more a commercial guy. But I just want to give chance to people who have not spoken. Sahaj, I don't think you've spoken. And we get Varmut after that, please.
Yeah.
Hi, Manisha. So my question was more around commercial real estate. So from an investment point of view,
let's hold that for a minute. We'll talk about commercial right after Manisha leaves. She knows commercial.
Let's leave commercial. I understand the pulse of the home buyer very well. So commercial, I think we leave it for the commercial experts.
I'm not the crazy guy. Or just.
So, Professor, ma'am, those who have the luxury of choosing between getting to have an EMI or paying it upfront, what is a wise option to go with? As in, pay the entire amount, or take a sub-minimal loan from a bank and go for EMIs?
Sorry, who's asking that question? I'm.
Ma'am, Ojas.
Okay, there. So, Ojas. Every 5 years, if you collect, so first of all, when you start out and you're under 30, take a longest tenure loan. 25 saal ka le lo, because it's when you do the math, you really do find that low EMIs over a long period of time is what you should start your home loan with. And if the bank is giving you 25 years, please take 25 years. In India, we don't give more than 25 years. Your burden will be low. And then what happens is, as you save, right, every 3 to 4 years, you get a big bonus, or you sell your startup and you made crazy amounts of money, you can start prepaying some chunks. Banks will allow you, they don't have a problem. वो कर दो, just for the fact कि आप है पैसा तो कर दो. मतलब जरूरी नहीं है कि you have to stay in debt. So two suggestions: take the longest at 30s में ले रहे हो, 20 years का मिल रहा है तो ले लो, 25 का ले लो. और बीच में when you get lump sum, just keep returning it, because psychologically you will, in the US, nobody returns home loans or nobody lump pays early because the interest rates are very, very low. 1.5% पे उनको मिल रहा है. But for us, it's still 6.75 now. It will go up. This year, it will go up. Interest rates are turning everywhere. So start paying lump sum if you have a little bit. Once you're debt free, that home becomes a fantastic lump sum asset for you in time of need or anything else.
Yeah.
But it's the cheapest loan amongst all loans available. So you don't have to also. A lot of people keep it. Out of all the debt that you will ever have in your life, home loan is always the cheapest. Car le lo, personal le lo, credit card le lo, home is always the
longest, cheapest and longest. Both.
The cheapest and longest. So this shouldn't be in a hurry to return it. But a lot of people, like I did, I mean, I kind of returned a bit every 4-5 years. And I'd taken a 25-year loan, but I finished it off in 10 years because it just gave me some sort of psychological well-being. कि अच्छा लगा कि debt free हो गए.
Yeah, hi Manisha, it was great to have you here. So my question was, Gurgaon is seen as the next big thing in real estate. And if you go there and if you leave Golf Course Road out of it, you see barren lands at one place, and just beside it, you see a very lavish building, very highly developed. So do you think the fate of Gurgaon will similar to be of Noida, as you described?
Noida is taken off like crazy because of Jewar. Sector 150 Godrej is sold at 9,000 rupees per square feet, where the market was 5,500 rupees per square feet. Where is the difference between Noida and Gurgaon left anymore? So, but coming back to your question, Gurgaon is, the kind of craziness that the Gurgaon real estate market saw between 2010 and 2013 or 12 is not likely to come back. It won't, right? The other thing is, now that you have Jewar Airport coming, right? There is a lot of commercial and office which is going to move, because there is a substantial difference in commercial real estate value there. Okay, so once that narrows down, then the real estate prices Noida should do the catch up with Gurgaon rather than reverse. But it's a far away. Even now, in all of NCR's market, Gurgaon is the most robust market simply because of the office demand. You have the best MNCs there. You have the top MNC CEOs living there. You have the best paid. We talked about affordability. Who are the kind of people who are working out of Gurgaon? Gurgaon has also become a very robust startup, another startup hub. You may call Bengaluru the Silicon Valley, but the number of startups which are working out of Gurgaon is also tremendous now. Noida will take some time, but you will not see those crazy kinds of appreciations anymore in Gurgaon because there is a Jewar coming up. So think about that. See? Jewar aa raha hai, to abhi Noida market will catch up. So